Hey guys, welcome back to the Basics of Lubricants series. This video is going to explain all about engine oil codes, names and approvals. As when working with lubricants, it's a very important part of the job and something you need to be aware of when talking to your customers. You'll probably have heard all sorts of terms and acronyms like SAE, API, Dexos, 10W30, ILSAC, and so on. It sounds confusing, but when you break it down, you'll see how all these letters and numbers are just shorthand to indicate the quality of an oil. Oils are ranked with high-performing oils approved by lots of independent bodies, while low-performing oils are only approved by a few groups. Now, when oils were first being formulated for commercial and passenger vehicles, two big independent groups were identified. The first group were the various vehicle manufacturers. They had and still have the ultimate say on what is the right oil for the engines that they make. In some cases, the original equipment manufacturers, or OEMs like General Motors, BMW, Mercedes and so on, created and continue to create their own standards for oil. For example, oil for a General Motors vehicle had to pass General Motors tests and is given what's known as Dexos 1 or Dexos 2 approval based on how it performs. The Dexos name being specific for General Motors. BMW has LL01 and LL04 approval codes. Each original equipment manufacturer that wants specific characteristics from an engine oil creates their own ratings. Lubricant manufacturers then work to achieve these firm OEM approvals. A long time ago, a large number of these original equipment manufacturers got together in a group called the Society of Automotive Engineers, or SAE, and also defined a set of generic codes for oil viscosities. So an oil might be described as an SAE 40 oil, or an SAE 5W20, or an SAE 15W40. The numbers represent the thickness of the oil, and the bigger the number, the thicker the oil. A single number is called a monograde oil, which are rarely made these days, as they are intended for operation in a narrow temperature range, which means that an SAE 40 oil is quite a thick oil to use in a hot environment. It would be no good in cold temperatures, as the cold would cause it to thicken more than it should. Equally, an SAE 15W oil is a winter oil that would work well in the cold but would run too thin in the heat. A 15W40 oil is a so-called multigrade oil. Multigrade oils have a very big operating range, performing well in cold and hot temperatures, having a workable viscosity in both. A 15W40 oil would be thicker at all temperatures than say a 5W30 at the same temperatures. Remember, smaller numbers mean a thinner oil, bigger numbers a thicker oil. The second big independent group that had a say in classifying the quality of an oil were the oil manufacturers and suppliers. The oldest group is called the American Petroleum Institute, or API. The API also defined a set of standards for oils and continued to define new standards every few years as engine technology develops. So you'll hear things like an API SJ oil or an API SM oil. The further along the alphabet the last letter of the engine code is, the more applicable the oil will be to current engine technology. The latest API code for passenger car motor oils is API SN, while for heavy-duty motor oils you'll see CJ4, which has superseded the older CI4. These codes mean that the oil works in recognized standard modern engines and passes certain key tests to qualify it. You'll often see the famous API donut on bottles showing the grade and the approval. Now, wouldn't it be great if that was it? Unfortunately, not all groups agree. There are others out there with their own set of standards which you need to know about. In Europe, the ASEA, or Association des Constructeurs Européens d'Automobiles, defines standards for European oils, and they define A, B, C and E oils with various numbers to differentiate different types and standards of oils. In Japan, the Japanese Automotive Standards Organization, or JASO, defines FA, FB, FC and FD standards. Finally, a joint American-Japanese group exists called the International Lubricant Standardization and Approval Committee, or ILSAC, and they define performance classes for oil called GF1 through to GF5, with GF6 currently in development. These standards require even more from the oil, be it in terms of cleanliness, fuel economy or low emissions. So, with all these grades, classifications and approvals, a top quality oil in the US might be a GM Dexos 1 compliant SAE 5W20 oil with API SN and ILSAC GF5 approvals. A top quality oil in Europe might be a VW 50101 compliant SAE 0W20. The VW implying Volkswagen had given it a certain approval, with a SIA A1 B1 approval. I like to think of it like a combination lock, with each grade, classification and approval representing another dial and another layer of reassurance. A lock with 4 dials will be much more secure than one with only a single dial, or no dial at all. So by comparison, if you pick up an oil with no OEM approvals, you are now looking at a much lower grade of oil. So you might just see something like SAE 5W30, a SIA A3B4 on the bottle. If the oil has no OEM approval and also no API, ILSAC or SIA approval, but just an SAE grade, then it would be an even lower performer again. If an oil hasn't got an SAE grade at all, then I really wouldn't touch it. You have no idea what it is. I hope this video has been useful to simplify the complex web of names, codes and approvals used for oils. As always, if you have any questions, please contact your Shell account manager. But for now, take care and be safe out there.